Hey, I am Mustafa Sharif. Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. This is the third episode about life in between two cities. And today I'm very honored to have Gabriela Rodriguez from Mexico, from Hermosillo city, to talk more about how was the life in Hermosillo and now in Stockholm city. So, hello and welcome, Gabriela, to Urbanistica podcast.
Thank you, Mustafa, for having me. The honor is mine that you finally asked me to join your your podcast. It has been really nice to hear all the episodes and the guests that you've had so far.
Thank you so much, Gabriel, and I am really appreciating your patience and also your time that you give for recording this episode.
Of course,
So, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, very good actually. Eh, Under the circumstances, I think all of us have been having those really good days and then ups and downs, but overall, yes, I've been trying to handle
Yeah,
everything.
you're surviving.
Exactly, yes, keeping
So,
myself sane.
the is it big impact on your work? I mean, by being at home, do you still work?
Yes, I think for the last maybe 6 weeks, I've been going back and forth, mostly from home, but I've been trying to go to the office. We are still open. Impact Hub is still open throughout it. But we have been affected, of course, because we rely a lot on the physical presence of our members and community events, and but we still have some people coming in and out. But of course, we have adjusted some of the safety requirements and keeping places with more distance in between, like the sitting areas. And I've been trying to, when I go to the office, I try not to take the public transport yet. So I've been biking to the office. So it has been really nice
Yeah,
to, yeah.
yeah, and for all the listeners, Impact Hub is, as you know, it's the co-working space, as that
Yes,
Gabriela doing her job from this co-working space.
yes.
Well, Gabriela, how would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what are you passionate about?
Okay, if I can introduce myself. I have been living abroad for a long time, and in a way, I feel like I have I'm a person that is able to adapt to different contexts, environments, but not only survival mode. I think that's not the right word. I I try to do my best everywhere that I go and visit and live, and try to create, if there's like a small impact that I can make, I try to see in what ways I can be of use in the place where I'm currently living.
Yes, and I remember when we met at the hackathon, you were living in so many different cities, right?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Hermosillo, that you pronounce very well. Good job. Hermosillo is my home state. It's located in the northern part of Mexico, and I was born there, raised there, and then for my teenage years, I went to live right after high school. I went to live to Canada. It was like my in between transitions, I guess. I was in Montreal for a little bit, for some months. Then I started my university years in Arizona, which is the border state with my home state. And it's the same. We say that it's like an extension of Hermosillo in a way, because it's the same uh, desertic environment and lifestyle. But then I made 2 years after living there. I made the transition to New York, which was like a big change. But I, like everyone, seen in a way, know New York for the movies and everything. And it was one of my biggest things to go and live there. I absolutely loved it. And I was there for maybe six, no, maybe 8 years. I lived there all my most of my 20s, and really liked it. And then I came to Sweden 2 years ago.
Welcome to Sweden.
Oh, thank you.
So it was a very big journey, and we're gonna go through it. So before we start going through this
Mhm.
story, tell us, what are you passionate about?
Yes. So yeah, that was the initial question. Sorry. So I think what I'm passionate about, I love to, I've always asked a lot of questions, and I may sometimes be a little annoying just to be asking questions, but I'm always super curious. I just want to know, and I'm super interested of like people and how, like, just to get to know them, what in terms of when people react a certain ways, I try like to analyze like what is behind that. So I guess like one of my passions is to get to know people and their whys in a way, if it makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, yes, of course, I understand you, but is it that you want to learn, or you're just curious about why they behave like this? Or you want like to create a great, how to say, model?
mm, Not only learn, but actually it's a way for me to uh, create relationships in a way of connecting with people. I think I really enjoy that, getting to
Yes.
just understanding by understanding, I guess.
Super interesting. Well, let's go back to your home city or hometown, Hermosillo. Tell us more about it. You can like introduce it, and we're going to talk about like different elements in it. Let's say the neighborhood that you were living in, how is the community, streets, and so what. I will guide through the conversation. So now the mic is yours, and just start the story.
Okay, so I'll try to do my best to paint the picture of the situation. So Hermosillo is the capital of the state of Sonora. Sonora has around 2.6 million inhabitants, and Hermosillo has, it's probably the population wise the size of Stockholm, and 900 plus of people. The physical environment is a desert, is dry. We have uh, flat lands, so the city is spread out. So it's not highly dense. We're all spread out, and a lot of the infrastructure model we have from the United States in terms of wide streets, narrow sideways, sidewalks, and because we are a desert, we have our fauna is very. We don't have like a lot of trees, but a lot of cactuses. We have so many cactuses, and yes, and particularly in my state, we have we the main industries is agriculture, the automobile industry, a lot of industrialization, and it's compared to the other places in Mexico, we are mostly the middle class is predominant, but we also have a lot of informal sector as well.
Yes. And how was the neighborhood that you were living in? Was it like a high-rise building, or like let's say a home, a villa in a suburb?
Mm. Yeah, so it's mostly I would say suburb vibe. I would say the city center. How, again, going back, like there's a hierarchy in terms of who owns the streets, uh, for example, there's a big priority of the car usage. It's a very bad thing, I guess, but there's factors like climate and also public transport infrastructure that hasn't allowed to have like a better public transportation system. So there's this big usage of cars. Like that's the main the main transportation system, cars everywhere. So anyway, going back to the hierarchy, so the streets are made for the cars, so everything is based on long distances, so everything is spread out. And we have a big issue of um, security. So where I'm going with this is the way that the housing system is made. There's a lot of close neighborhoods that, like, let's say, I don't know, like if you can have a picture, is like 40 to 30 houses that live in a walled neighborhood.
They are separated from each other by like a wall, a fence, or like just let's say trees or something.
No trees, walls. Like
Okay.
you call them in Spanish, the Spanish word is fraccionamientos, which is like close neighborhoods, I would say, with a guard and everything. And it sounds worse than it actually is. And then within those neighborhoods, you have like your common area with your pool and playgrounds and everything. And so I didn't grow up in that yet, but it was like a one family house in an open neighborhood, but it was everything just houses, houses, houses. And if you wanted to go to the supermarket, you needed the car. And so yeah, it was like, I wouldn't say long distances, but 5 to 10 minutes by car. And sometimes you wouldn't use uh, bicycles, or because one, the weather, another, we have an issue of not having a culture of using the bike. So the drivers are not used to that much to have, I mean, to respect bike lanes and things like that. So it was kind of, it was very different from now, where here in Stockholm, let's say, and or New York. Um, but that's the way that I grew up. Like that's wherever we went, it was by car. We used the car, and our playgrounds were not public playgrounds, but either private parks or areas that were for, I don't know, a kids party. Or I personally, I played tennis my whole life. So for example, my playground would be the tennis club. I don't know, like to play there. And yeah,
Yeah.
so
S-
it's like interesting now that I'm talking about it. It's interesting, yeah.
Yes, of
Another.
course. It's always interesting to reflect about the urban planning and design. So now I'm wondering, like, so is there just one entrance to this area, or or there are several entrances to this area?
And so they have, it's only one entrance. If you can picture, is so let's say it's main boulevards, this wide boulevards, and then you have like these neighborhood entrances where there's different fraccionamientos, like close
Yeah.
neighborhoods together, let's say, but all of them are maybe next to each other, but closed within this neighborhood of 50, no, let's say 30 families, let's say.
Yeah. Like the 30 houses, let's say, units.
Yes, uh-huh.
Mm.
And
And
yeah, sorry. And I would say that that's common between like middle class and socioeconomic possibilities, of course, middle class and upper classes. But of course, if you go to um, other places where it's lower income, they're mostly located in the peripheries of the city. And it's not close neighborhoods, the majority. And going back to the topic of access to the city, middle class and upper classes, most of the people, they can drive and they own a car. But those that don't own a car, they depend on the public transport. And the public transport system is not as efficient. So it creates a wider gap between those that live in the peripheries to access their jobs, let's say that it's closer to the city center.
Yeah, and is it because the municipality is not investing in public transportation and bike lanes, or like what is the situation of the public transportation?
What is the issue? So a lot of the issues that have to do with infrastructure in mostly Latin America, and if particularly like if you talk of Mexico, we have we deal a lot with corruption in politics and our governors and authorities. So the way that Hermosillo grew, it was exponential all of a sudden. I think it was like the 1930s, 1940s, when it started to become this industrialization shift, and a lot of like the nearby towns, they started coming to the city, and the city started to grow without an actual urban planning in itself. It just started to patch in between and just adapt to the situation, but there was no clear guidance on that. And in terms of the public transportation system, it's comparing to other big cities in Mexico. It didn't develop that well in Hermosillo because those that were taking public transport are not necessarily the ones that have a big say on politics, I guess, or I don't know how to say, because as I told you, the majority of the people use the car, so it hasn't been prioritized, unfortunately, which is very bad. And so that's one thing. Definitely the governance of our city, that has been an issue
Mm.
of why it hasn't been developing.
Yeah, and what are the different transportation, let's say, vehicles you have now? Do you have the buses? Like, is there a
Mhm.
metro, or what are the different?
There's no metro. We're not there yet. No, and only buses. That's the main public system that we have. And part of the issue of not using it is again the weather. It's desert, but we have one of the hottest places on earth. I think it's like on maybe from May till August, we might have temperatures of 40, 45 degrees Celsius. And but it's amazing. The best weather, I think it's between November and March. We have can be like 25 or really nice weather. 25, 30 can be coldish, hottish. And so I think that's one big factor on it. And it can be like a snowball effect, because if you don't have the infrastructure that adapts to the climatological situation, you're not going to have like stimulations for people to use them. Like if you don't have buses with ACs adapted, or let's say if I were to bike to my job, I would get all sweaty if you don't have like shower in the offices or things like that. So it's different small things, and part of the um, already set infrastructure, I guess, that is not helping this advance.
Yeah. Is there any willing from the municipality to, how to say, to push for a biking culture or public transportation culture? No, or no, it's continue the same.
Yes, on the topic of bike lanes, it's been improving actually the last years. I think maybe the last 10 years and forward. No, yes, last 10 years and forward, we have improved that on the bike lanes. There's still a lot to do, like the new roads that they're building, they have bike lanes now. There's still much work to do, and it has to do with the car culture that we have. That's it's still bike like statistics show that bikers are still feel unsafe on the bike lanes because of being ran over or something.
Yeah,
But it's getting there. I think it's. But going back to I now that I started thinking of it, I always before living here, I always associated riding the bike not as a method of transport, but mostly recreational. In terms of, I would, because I always biked my whole life, but not to go somewhere. It was just to
for fun, like.
exercise for fun. Uh huh.
Yes,
Yes.
I understand you. It's not like you go from point A to B to do something. It's more about like just biking around the area you're
Hmm.
living in, just for
Yes.
having fun with friends, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Exactly.
How was the, you mentioned the public spaces and playgrounds in the area. Like between the housing units, was it there like a public space for every one, or how was it?
Yes. We have um we have some parks that are open to the public, and the way that they are maintained has to do a lot with the private sector as well, meaning that those that uh, to put the park in there, there's efforts from the private sector and the government, but to maintain them, they try to rely a lot on the people that live around. So that's a big can be like a big issue in terms of the government again not having that continuation, just doing something but not actually maintaining it. But we do have, there's some parks, some like old parks that are still there in place, they're still being used. um, but I wouldn't say it's as free or as natural to just go and I'll go to this large public park. No, it's a lot of private owning areas. I would say it's very privatized. I think a lot of these open spaces.
Yeah. So if I'm like right with my idea now or my reflection, so you're using more the garden that you have in your house instead of going to a park. Like,
Hmm. Yes, I would say that, or recreational areas. It's very common that you have, because we are a state or a city that we're super into baseball, for example, baseball or soccer or football. So there are these parks that have all these available spaces to have all these activities simultaneously, I guess. So I could say that those are the kind of recreational spaces that one can frequent there.
yeah, and even if you're like if you're not playing a football, but you want to be somewhere, so you have to be there somehow.
Yes, but we also, I gotta say, we have many, not many, but some significant hills or mountains around, but a little bit further of the city that people go and hike and all that. So that's nice as
Nice.
well.
That's very beautiful. If
Yes.
how will you describe like a common street section? I know there are some different depends on the area and so on.
All right. So if I paint the picture, it's flat, flat road, long. There's a lot of boutique shops, I would say, on the sides, red lights and the lights and everything. We have a lot of vendors sometimes on the stoplights. You would see vendors. You would see these like signs of, businesses and stuff that they're promoting their things. We do have bikers as well. I'll tell you, bikers that go to work that they use it as a method of as a method of transportation, but it's not common that you see them with helmet, for example. That
Yeah.
I think that's a good reflection of the kind of usage of bikes for transportation in Hermosillo, is that you wouldn't see someone that I don't know works, like someone that would be riding the bike to work would be um, lower income, like a construction worker, for example, that's in Mexico is not paid very well, or maintenance, etc. But you don't see them wearing helmets. Like I think that's like a very significant thing, knowing that it's very dangerous to drive. I mean, that there's no bike lanes or things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah,
how many car lines in this section? Like, is it two by two?
it can be 2x2, or yeah, they can be. It can go both ways. I remember one very descriptive thing of the car lanes would be a lot of concrete. We see so much concrete, and now especially we have an issue with potholes, which is a it's like an interesting thing that there's so many potholes, and we are not used to have a rain in Hermosillo. It's like I told you, it's very dry. So the moment it rains, it creates several potholes, and I'm mentioning this because now in the city there's a public space that the civil society is trying to save as a property of the town, not privatize it. They don't want to, because the government wants to sell it so they can obtain funds to fix the potholes.
Yeah.
So it's what I'm trying to say is like the priorities that are in here, like they're able to, or they want to sacrifice, let's say, these green spaces or these areas that is for the community, so they can patch something that of course is needed, but you shouldn't sacrifice this for this,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's interesting, like those are the kind of decisions that our governments take.
And how is the life in the street? You mentioned about the weather, but is there any life, I mean, outside the shops in the street?
Yes, I think the life, I one thing that I can compare it here with Sweden is that here life comes back in the summer, right? And comparing it to Hermosillo, my hometown, is that our life can be, let's say, if you do sports or if you do early morning activities, it's before maybe 10 a.m., before the sun really hits, and then after 4 p.m., when like those times, because for us it's not like here would be in the winter during the day, and then after 4 is dark. For us is the opposite, is like super intense sun for a gap of 4 hours, and then we are back to life, or we are outside again. So I there's it's super common to have these it became common to have these areas, open spaces where you have a lot of food trucks, and you have outdoor seating spaces, and you have a live music playing at night, and drinking beer. We love drinking beer. So it's, I guess it's like these outdoor spaces where people just gather, and it's very casual. And yeah, we do
Yeah.
have several spaces like that, but it comes after the sunset. You need to do it after the sun.
Yeah. And how is the nightlife there?
Very fun. Very fun. It's, I would say, it's like a little bit limited in terms of options of places to go, but it's very common to do house parties outdoors, in outdoor spaces. And yes, yeah, people drink a lot there,
Yes.
a lot of cerveza. Yes.
Well, that's really great. I think now For me, at least, I have a good picture of Hermosillo, and I would love that we move to Stockholm.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And yes, now tell me about your neighborhood now in Stockholm. How is it, if you describe it?
My neighborhood in Stockholm. So I recently moved to Midsommarkransen 6 months ago, and uh, and before that, these past 2 years, we've been moving around here as well. We were in Vasassam for a little bit, so a lot of city center. And I would say I mean, it's completely another picture from my hometown in Hermosillo. Um, I live on a building on a way smaller place. We have an outdoor garden. You see a lot of people going, just taking a walk. Like for us, I will just go take a walk. It was not a thing in Hermosillo. And we have all the bikes parked, um, the train station 1 block away. We didn't have a train station there. I never took public transportation, maybe twice or something in Mexico. Um, and yes, very different lifestyle, more compact, but more, how do you say, closer to other people, I would say.
Yeah. So do you have how in terms of public spaces, is there any public spaces or you need to walk some distance to go to a public space?
Here in
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yes, we have several parks around. A lot of, and well, the fauna as well here. It's so much green now when the spring is coming. So the seasons are very predominant comparing to my hometown. Um, and yes, we have public spaces. We have outdoor gyms around. Maybe like, no, that one is a little bit, maybe 10-15 minute walk, but a lot of parks, maybe 5 minute walking from here, and way more people walking with their strollers and stuff.
Yeah. And can you survive without car in Stockholm?
Yes, you can definitely. If you talking about where I live, yes, but I guess it's, if you go to further out in the suburban areas of Stockholm, I guess it's more necessary to have a car in some areas. But where I'm located, yes, you can survive with no car.
Okay. And how is the bike? We know that the biking culture is very rich in Stockholm. So did you start to use bike there and commute to work, or what are you using to go to your job?
I mostly use the train because it's very convenient. It's very easy to take, and but now with the virus going on, I feel more comfortable biking. And now that I've been doing it, and it's actually I feel very safe biking. Um, and and it's nice sceneries. You see people around, so I think that gives like that. It helps to give that, make it easy, like just the point A to point B. And yeah, I think I would. I'm going to keep biking, I guess.
Yeah, and it's now not just for fun, but more also like during the daily life to commute
Transport.
from
Yes.
work home. Yes.
Yes.
And how would you like to, as you say, to paint the picture? How would you like to paint a picture of the a common street in Stockholm?
Paint the picture.
Yes.
So, okay, for those that don't live in Stockholm, um, so I would say it's like this place that has respected, or that has honored in a way its history, as in terms of preserving the infrastructure of the buildings, the colors, and in a way adapted it to the needs of the people to connect them to point A to point B. In terms of mobility, I think uh, Sweden or Stockholm has been doing a great job in that way, that sense. Um, I do feel that they give more priority to the bikers and the people walking on the streets. Um, and to paint the picture, there's a lot of bridges and access of the cycling lanes for to cross the bridges. So I think it's like a good ride that it doesn't feel more than it is because there's so many things going on and happening, and yeah, it's a
Yeah.
very
And
very
how is
good
how
place to like.
yes, and how is the life in the street?
How is life in the street? Depending on what season you're talking on, depending on the season, but overall, it's very common to see people just walking to walk or to for recreation, but also like to walk from point A to point B. Yes, like you see a lot of bikers, even though whatever weather, if it's too hot or if it's cold, you just adapt your bike wheels, I guess. um, and what else? Every day, yeah. There's. I think it's a good because there's very a lot of seasons. Like the city, in a way, adapts to both to for life to keep going, regardless of what type um what period during the year you're at.
Yeah. And do you see like people standing around the corners talking and having ice cream, or no, like people just buy something and go to parks? I mean, they are not standing in the street. They go to somewhere, either home or to some park or something.
Yes, they do. It's very common, and I think it has to do a lot with the accessibility of it as well. Like to have that closeness of it creates like a more natural without planning too much ahead. Let's say that it's available to short distances and just walking distances. And yes, I think that's it's part of like how the environment can adapt to the needs of its citizens, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now the aim of this conversation is like to see what are the different possibilities in the cities and how can Stockholm learn from other cities. So if I might ask you, what can we in Stockholm learn from your hometown in Mexico and get inspired to do it here?
I think in terms of what can can be learned, I think of the situation in Stockholm is because there's so many advantages, and I would say it as, let's say, as someone that is not from here, as an immigrant that came here, I like all these accessibilities or things that the government provides to their citizens. For me, it's like amazing, and I'm thinking of Hermosillo or Mexican cities, how um, even though we have our governments not uh, being there completely to the quality of life of the citizens, what I think it can be like a really good learning experience from what is happening in places that you go against, uh, where the government sometimes go against your own well-being, even though you pay your taxes and everything. I think the word is resilience, like how sometimes like the importance of the civil society to just um, gather and work together and generate these organizations that are trying to implement regardless of like the adversity that is generated of like the scarcity that they don't that their governments don't provide. So I think that's like a good thing to learn from like places like my city, I guess.
Yes,
Mm.
very, very interesting reflection, Gabriela.
Like more, yes, more on the of what one can do for their city, I guess, and the well-being of others as a community, I guess.
Yeah. And Gabriela, if I ask you, I've been in so many different cities. How do you define a smart city?
Smart city, the first thing at the beginning, I would have thought like a, a very technological, advanced, modern place. But I think it's a smart city for me would be one that serves both the these urban citizens, but that they keep this connection with the natural environment, like how you can bridge these two worlds without uh, one interfering with the other, I guess.
And how much
Or yes,
and how much technology can help us to create this?
I think a lot, but I think technology is like this tool that we should be using, but shouldn't be ruling the way we interact or the way that we connect. Should be an extension, but not the main source of keeping that human connection. Um, but at the end of the day, I think talking for, let's say, now what we're seeing of the situation of the virus is that at the end of the day we just want to see and meet people and just to be able to, like, the little things that bring joy, just to go to the park and have like some sun, see people going around, being able to go to a shop close by and just feel like safe and belonging, just to be part of like this scenario or this picture, I guess.
Yeah, so for you, a smart city is more about the social interaction, a social city.
Yes, how can we can use technology to enhance that social interaction, and at the same time a smart city is one that it's in constant development, it's always evolving, is one that it's always adapting to the needs of its citizens and the well-being of its citizens and the well-being of of the natural environment as well.
Yeah. Do,
Yes.
do you think Stockholm is a smart city?
In many ways, I think it is. It is a smart city because you can see it in the quality of life of um, of the people that live here. The majority there's still gaps, of course, like any other place. But as long as there's this effort to trying to improve the current situation, and it's a mm, as long as there's this effort like to improve the current situation, but the um, the well-being of those that are most vulnerable in the societies, if there's this effort for to extend their well-being as well, I think that is part of this movement of being a smart city where everyone is taken into account, I guess.
Very interesting
Mm.
reflection and thoughts, Gabriela, especially for me working with urban planning in Stockholm. So I will consider what you were mentioning.
Yes, those that have. Uh-huh, exactly. When you implement, when you make a welcoming environment to, when it's like intergenerational, when it's like also cultural um, considerations, I think that's part of the smart city
Yes.
image.
Yeah, very interesting to hear that. Well, Gabriela, thank you so much for giving your time and also for reflecting from two different cities. It was super interesting to hear the story and how you compare between the two cities. Now I would like to end up this story by asking you three questions. The first one is, what is the next step for you?
The next step for me. Okay. Uh, Short term, I need to finish my thesis. That's my short term. I still have it there. I need to turn it in. And medium long term, I think I would still be working in the place that I am at, Impact Hub. Shout out to Impact Hub. I love it. We're doing very interesting things, and I think now it's very uh, challenging, but there's a lot of opportunities. I think that we are going to be like exploring from this and after this, and so that's for me. I'll keep working, and then in a way long term I would like to share that in a way long term I would love to do something that has to do to bridging that of what we can learn from the urban development here in Sweden and how to bring it on my to Hermosillo, to my city, because it's a very interesting place with a lot of potential and also interest because of its privileged location in a way. Because I didn't mention that we have the Pacific Ocean right there. We have access through maritime like industries. We have this international airport closeness to the United States, and so there's all these factors that make it that has a lot of potential to be further explored. I would love to at one point in these upcoming years to do this kind of like collaboration of exchange of either urban development ideas or just cultural exchange. So that's on the long term, I guess.
Yes, of course. I wish you all the good luck. Firstly, with thesis, you have to finish it, Gabriela.
I know you've been telling me. I know.
Every time I talk
Soon.
to Gabriela, she's telling me like, I need to finish my thesis. I need to finish my thesis.
Yes, it's there on my plans. Yes, I
Yes,
promise.
great, great, Gabriela. So, how would you like to summarize what we talked about today and also some of your reflections and three takeaway messages?
Three takeaway messages. Um, so for me, it's urban living and urban planning. It's all based on the people. Like it's all based on what is it that people need. What is it that we need to keep that connection. So for urban planners out there, keep that in mind of trying to have to be intergenerational and considered with the cultural eye that you give to places based around people and and get to know your neighbor, get to know someone. Like now I'm talking of going to different places and knocking doors. You never know what can bring just by giving yourself a chance to expose, to be vulnerable, feel comfortable being vulnerable. Just go out there and um, and reach out to people and just um, try to connect with others on a personal level and yeah, build relationships. Don't be scared. Everyone is scared, I think. If you go to the place that everyone is just trying to figure it out, yes, we're all figuring it out together.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. And time for the three hashtags.
Yes. Stay connected, get involved in your community, and small changes create big changes.
Cool, cool, super cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you nailed
I think it was like 4 hashtags. Sorry about that.
it.
Yeah.
Gabriela, thank you so much for giving your time and sharing your story and reflection with us.
Thank you, Mustafa, for inviting me. And good to talk to you as always. And hi to all your audience.
Thank you. And to my whole audience, so thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. Please follow the Instagram account, LinkedIn, and also subscribe the YouTube channel. If you have any great story that makes our city smarter, please contact me. I am Mustafa Sharif. Have a good life.